episode of Let's Talk Broncos, the Thursday edition. I'm
Oh,
sitting here to my right with the main man, Frankie Abbott. Frankie, how are you doing today, man?
doing great, doing great. We got a week off Broncos football and we're coming off a Chiefs win, so I'm feeling excellent. How are you doing, Joseph?
I'm feeling great too, man. I was able to attend that Chiefs game. Shout out to
Oh, yeah.
of Let's Talk Broncos.
We got to talk
Give me
about
the
that.
tickets, and it was really cool. I got to see the team. Like, I don't think the camera caught all of it, but I know that win felt more better to the team than just some average win. I do know that. Like, just watching the reaction, Bulls was when they were pretty much going to win the game, and we all knew it. After every snap, the guy was like looking around at the crowd, like getting everybody hyped up, some fist bumps in there. He was going crazy.
Hell yeah.
So it meant more to the team. And hey, man, I loved it.
I got a couple questions, honestly, because I forgot you were at the game. So was Bulls who was the most hyped about the win? Would you say it was Bulls? Give me some other highlights. Who were the star, like, most excited, most expressive players at the game?
Judy's always expressive, whether it be good or bad. But Frankie, when he caught that post route and he hit the ground, and I haven't seen a catch like that from Judy in quite some while. I think probably his rookie year, that Jets one where he caught it right over the top and brought it in for a touchdown. Brett ripping through that throw, I believe.
King Rip.
Yeah, but he was very expressive during the game. Every big catch he made, he was up. He was talking shit. He had to let people know what time it was. But yeah, the team, you could tell it felt good for them. Baron Browning was all over the field celebrating the entire game. Every tackle he made, it was a big celebration from Baron Browning. It was Von Miller-esque celebrations. So, I mean, yeah, it was good. And it was a fun game to attend. I think probably my favorite Broncos game that I've attended. Just, when I'm sitting there watching the game at home, I turn fan mode off. I'm sitting there, I'm tweeting the whole time. I'm trying to be Mr. Analyst guy. At the game, fuck it. I'm not even on my phone. I'm sitting there watching it with my boy Sam, my roommate.
Hell yeah.
The first NFL game he went to converted him to a Broncos fan. He left that game with a Patrick Surtain jersey. So
That's a great choice.
Yeah.
A collector's item.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, overall, super excited about it.
I got one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What play garnered the best crowd response? Which play from the game? Because there were a lot, I feel like, that deserved a huge crowd pop. Which one do you think was the most exciting? Or for you, which did you react to the biggest?
So I was sitting on the end zone, and the touchdown that Judy caught after the post, I had a great view of both of those. I was towards me in the end zone. And I think the touchdown that he caught was really exciting. Everybody in the crowd lost their mind, Frankie. That was the one where it was like, damn, do we have a chance here? Like, because it takes a lot for us to go into a Chiefs games after all the losses we've had. And the Broncos fans are really smart, especially the ones that attend the games. Guys, they know what the hell they're talking about. Like, unnuanced crowd isn't doing the clock countdown during the Hackett era. They're not doing that. They know ball. They're sitting there, oh my God, these guys are taking forever. let's start the crowd chant. That they're in the game. It's not a social event. We're here for football. So shout out to Broncos country for that all day. But Frankie, I kind of want to move on. Before we do that, Samuel Castro in the chat. What up, Samuel Castro? Always appreciate you joining, man. He's in here every day. So shout out to you all day, man. But I want to get in. There was news that broke today, Frankie, and that news was, hey, Adam Schefter joined the Fan on their radio show, as he does a lot, and they asked him, hey, what player was almost traded? He said nobody. Nobody was almost traded for the Broncos. No one came close to the asking price. And they were like, okay, so what was offered for Judy? And he said straight up, a 3rd and a 5th round pick. To me, that felt like a fair trade. But Frankie, what do you say? Are you happy the Broncos didn't make that trade? Or are you kind of like, damn, they should have done that?
Yeah. So I'm of the mindset that, like, I think that is a pretty fair price. But I'm also of the mindset that I'm not upset they didn't move him. I've kind of said to you, I don't think that his price will necessarily drop too much after the season. We'll see about that, but I'm kind of a big believer in the second half of what Jerry Jeudy and Marvin Mims can kind of bring to the table. I like what we're seeing out of the cohesion from the locker room. You're talking about how excited everyone was for the Chiefs game. They just went 2-1 coming out of a 10-day break. And I know, I know that like fans and analysts can look at it from the mindset of like, oh, like, well, are they really contending? Was this really a turning point? Like for the coaches and the players, this was a turning point, like that is the mindset they have. They won 2 big games and they won them pretty handedly, to be honest. Like, I think this is the kind of them telling themselves that they can do this. I think them moving a piece like Jeudy after all the kind of hubbub that's kind of been going on throughout the season, especially surrounding him and the receiver room in general. Like, I think that's kind of a move that kind of would signal to the locker room that there isn't really much hope for this year, when we'll kind of talk about more next week, little teaser, when we kind of do a little bit of a checking out the rest of the season. I think that this team kind of believes they can make the playoffs. And I don't think when you look at kind of the AFC wildcard race right now, I don't think they're too crazy to do so. So what were your thoughts on them kind of turning down the move?
Frankie, I think they should have, man. If it was actually a 3rd and 5th, I'm doing it. I really am. And here's a point I want to bring to you, and I kind of want to get your opinion on this. The Broncos were open to trading a wide receiver this offseason. And how do I know that? Because they were out there trying to attain one via free agency. I know they offered a higher paid contract to an Allen Lazard. I know that they were out there trying to get Adam Thielen. These are both been reported by prominent reporters in the NFL, whether it be Adam Schefter or Jordan Schultz. These guys know what they're talking about. And so what has changed from now to then? Is Jeudy that much better or more productive than he was going into the season? Why am I stopping that trade from happening now? I know they were about to trade one. What's the big difference? Is it just because we won a Kansas City game? And because if that's it, hey, like I get it. You want to push hard for the playoffs, but one game shouldn't change your entire scope of what is going on here as a roster. And I've been hearing these rumors from Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy for so long that it's like, what am I doing sitting on my hands now? That's just kind of the way I feel. I'm not changing my scope after one game. I'm just not.
That's fair. But I also think that this isn't them changing. Like, we've heard the same thing from them now for like 9 months. Teams haven't met their asking price. And as much as that we can disagree with that, like, that's just kind of the way it is. I don't think it's them sitting on their hands. I think it's them continuing to say, we believe in the talent that is Jerry Jeudy. And I mean, something that I'd say is, do you think that this is the best offense that Jerry Jeudy has gotten to be a part of since he's been in Denver?
Yes. I think the Teddy Bridgewater offense was fair to him as well. I really do. I think the Teddy Bridgewater is a good quarterback, specifically for a Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver.
No, that's a good point. I'd say this is arguably the best or second best offense then. And I think something that we'll kind of talk about later when we get into more of our film notes. I've enjoyed a lot more of the usage we've seen out of Jeudy. He already did have to miss a week of the season, even though it was just a week. Like, I am a believer in the second half Jerry Jeudy. We're seeing this offense kind of come alive more and more. As I was telling you before the show, Jerry Jeudy, as this isn't going to sound like a crazy big stat, 5 of his 7 games, he has 50 yards, and a lot of those have come in recent weeks. Like, last week, he already had 60 yards and a touchdown. There was a missed wide open slant on the glance route that they ran on the RPO. Like, I think that we could see a big second half explosion out of Jerry Jeudy and then end up kind of recouping some of that value. And again, I also think when we talk about the buyers in the NFL right now, I just don't think there's many teams that are really offering that are kind of raising the price on him. Whereas I think in the offseason, when more teams have the cap space to kind of make a move like this, when more teams are kind of trying to convince themselves they can win in the next year, I think there might be more people interested in a Jerry Jeudy, and that could even drive up his price more too. But I also do kind of see your side where why would you not move a guy if you're already thinking you're going to move him anyways?
Yeah, and Samuel Castro kind of brings that up here, and I'll just throw his question. He says, do you guys think by not trading Jeudy, the Broncos are maybe rising his stock by getting his stats up than probably trading him in the offseason? And the way I'm going to frame his question to you, Frankie, is there a chance that they get more than a 30-5
I think so.
Next offseason? You do?
Yeah. Receiver value in the NFL right now, dude, is crazy. Like, receiver value is so nuts. I think as we get close, like on draft night, we could see end up a trade happening when teams kind of look at their board and see that there isn't maybe a guy they like. I think it's totally possible, dude. We could see a big second half explosion out of Jerry Jeudy where he has 700 yards and 5 TDs. And I know that's kind of like, oh, hypothetical, but like I really do believe that's in the realm of possibility with what we've seen out of him in the past couple weeks. And then I think we're having kind of an entirely different conversation. And I also think it's kind of one of those things where I think it kind of benefits the team to have him there more than it kind of hurts them to get rid of them. And I do think, again, we're talking about some of these young guys like Marvin Mims and Brandon Johnson and how we'd like to see them more. I think right now we're kind of seeing maybe those guys aren't necessarily super ready to step into these bigger roles that Sean Payton might want them to kind of be ready for next season. And it's better just to have a guy like Jerry Jeudy to kind of be that placeholder for the offense to kind of keep developing and kind of keep having the young guys that are within it having competency around him and being able to develop.
Okay, well, I think that's fair, but here's my thing, and it's just that it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, if I'm under the belief that Jerry Jeudy was made available this offseason, and I think there's plenty of reason to think he was, as I laid out earlier, I'm pretty confident that they would have taken a 3-5 this offseason. If they're out there trying to sign other players, they probably do that. If they're out there saying, hey, what's Adam Thielen's price? That means that, we're trying to replace somebody in this offense. People are mad about Marvin Mims' production right now. What do we think? So Adam Thielen comes in. He would not be seeing a lot of snaps either if you keep Jerry Jeudy on the roster. I think that I don't think that it was offered this offseason, and I don't think he's done much to improve his stock this season. That is the main worry here, along with injuries. And what do we know about Jerry Jeudy? He's been hurt quite frequently. Nothing serious, but things where it's like, okay, he's out for 3 weeks. He's out for 4 weeks. He's out for 5 weeks. And that's been since his rookie season. I think there's more to lose. Is it possible that the Broncos do get more this offseason? Yes. I've been super excited about the way he's being used in this offense. Going back to this offseason, you're going to see 1,000 tweets from JR Drafts on Twitter about, I am so excited to see Jerry Jeudy in Sean Payton's offense. But I think there is a higher percentage of the price going down this offseason than it is up. And that's what scares me. Okay. It feels like it's all for a wild card push. And while I love that, I just don't even know the possibility of them getting there. Like I still think it's below 50% that the Broncos get into a wild card spot. And for me, it feels like that's the main reason why he's still on the team today.
Yeah. I mean, I see it differently completely about like him losing his price versus him being able to increase it. And then I'd also say we can't say for certain that they would have taken a 3 and a 5 this offseason, because I also don't think they would have. I think they said pretty blatantly what they thought their price was this offseason. I think we heard reports of what the Giants were offering, and I think it was more than a 3 and a 5. Like, I think they've just firmly said what they want their price to be, and they're just kind of waiting for it. I don't think it's really a thing where they're just like, we're willing to give up Jerry Jeudy, because I don't think that they're just like giving up on him. I don't think there's the guy they're trying to rush out the door for whatever they can get for him. And again, this isn't a guy that is about to be out the door. I think that they're kind of okay to kind of stand pat here.
Fair. Well, hey man, we'll agree to disagree here. I just want to end it off by saying it's not the end of the world. I still think the Broncos are going to get, I'm not trying to make up in arms, pissed off. I'm not trying to be negative Nancy over here. I don't think it's the worst decision ever. I'm just letting you guys know what my little sense on it is. And obviously Frankie disagrees with me, so there's multiple avenues of thinking here. But Frankie, let's move on to the next subject. And I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos. The streak is broken. And boy, am I excited about it.
Good.
It feels so good. And for those that haven't tuned into the last 2 weeks, Frankie and I are kind of taking a different approach to our Thursday show. It's not just random thoughts. We're taking more of a film perspective, what we saw from the film, and bringing it to you guys here. And I want to start off with the most exciting part, I think. The Broncos are they look okay on offense. And that's something I couldn't say in years in the past.
Years.
Exactly. So let me know, Frankie. Tell me about or how the Broncos were able to score points in this game and actually be efficient on offense.
Yeah. So the first note I got written down is that Quinn Miners, honestly, every blocker on the team kicked the Chiefs' teeth in straight up. Like, it did not matter who was on the field. Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, didn't matter. They were getting beaten up. Like, we saw Adam Troutman, I think, have his best game as a blocker. A lot of people have kind of been a little underwhelmed with Adam Troutman as a receiver, which, is understandable. He hasn't produced a whole lot, but today, like last week, he was destroying safeties. He was destroying nickelbacks. We saw them utilize the screen game a lot more. And I mean, they just dedicated themselves to the run game, pounded the rock. We saw a lot of variations of different run concepts, different screen passes. And I mean, they just wore down the Chiefs' defensive front and just kept running with efficiency. And it was awesome to see, man. And there was a lot of like, we were talking about it just earlier with you were talking about who was the most like expressive players. There was a lot of like bravado from the guys that were blocking up front, from Quinn Miners every time he was laying a dude out or laying in to finish a block for Javonte and push him forward a little bit. There was a lot of celebrating, there was a lot of like, we are sick of being dominated by this team and we are a serious contender. We're tired of being little brothered, and it was just great to see. So that was my first note. The shout out to the offensive line and everyone who was blocking, from Michael Burton all the way to Nate Adkins to Chris Manhertz, little Jordan Humphrey. Everybody was awesome.
Yeah. I think you mentioned it, but like even Quinn Bailey seeing action.
Quinn Bailey.
Yep. Chris Manhertz. These type of guys are getting a ton of snaps for the Broncos. Michael Burton. The Broncos are running heavy personnel a lot. And it's not
glorious.
Just Greg Dulcich at tight end in those heavy personnels. It's Chris Manhertz, who isn't going to catch the fucking football. He's out there to block. That's who's out there for the Broncos, and they're playing bully ball. I mean, in that first drive, I think we saw Quinn Bailey 3 times.
Yeah.
They set a tone right from the beginning. They were letting you know what the hell we're doing. We're playing big. Stop us. And that's what I enjoyed about that game. Javonte looked explosive to me. He looked like he was cutting off a dime. Is he breaking tackles at as high of a rate? I'd have to check the stats, but from the eye test, it doesn't really look like it. But I do think his vision, I think, is a little better than it was last year. I don't know if anybody else has that take. That's something that I've come across watching his film is like, okay, I see him hitting the cutback more than I saw last year. That's a good sign. So that's something to note. And then just Jaleel McLaughlin continues to impress. Our offensive linemen were even getting out in the screen game. That's something that was really great too. I'm not just talking about them playing power, just straight crazy head-to-head football. I'm talking about them getting on the move and them getting their landmarks in downfield. That was super impressive. You see that from Mike McGlinchey all the time. That's a strong suit of Garrett Bowles as well. And honestly, Quinn Miners is good at it. Lloyd Cushenberry is good at it. The Broncos offensive line is really good in the screen game. And I don't remember, Frankie, a Broncos screen game as good as it is now. And it's not saying much because Broncos screen game has been atrocious for so many years now. But since the 2015 Broncos win, and it's not as efficient as that team was in the screen, but no team has been better at it than this one, other than that 2015 going all the way back to that team. Me personally, it's been impressive. I like what Sean Payton's dealing up down there in the screens, and the offensive line is doing a great job getting it together and going. It's awesome to see. And all the running backs are getting involved in it too. P. Ryan's even good in that type of setting.
We even saw a tunnel screen for Marvin Mims dialed up, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have anything else to add for the offense, Frankie?
Oh, I gotta. So I just want to keep going. I have a question for you. Is Lloyd Cushenberry a Pro Bowl center right now?
Pro Bowl. I don't know if he's a top. I mean, it's the fan vote, so who the fuck knows?
I'm just kind of like, yeah, that is fair. That is fair. Non-fan vote, like in the Pro Bowl range. Do you think he could make it this year?
I think that he is. I think it's too early for him. Like, even though Pro Bowl is supposed to be a year, I still evaluate it like what's under your belt a little bit. I'm going to give the guy that has been doing it for 2 years in a row the benefit of the doubt, other than the guy that's been doing it for a year. So I'd say no. But if he continues to stack games together like he is now, that is how you end up becoming a Pro Bowl center. Good. What do good players do?
Is he playing at a Pro Bowl level, would you say?
I'd say he's close to it if he's not there.
I do. I think Lloyd Cushenberry straight up, like, as much as it makes me sad, but also like makes me happy for him. I think he's playing himself sadly out of Denver's price range, probably. Like, I'm kind of like, I mentioned it to you. I think we mentioned it last week, how like, man, this is a guy who has been on the field consistently. Those guys don't hit free agency often. This is a guy who's really hitting his stride, and he's still young. I believe Lloyd's only 25, or maybe he's 26 now. Like, still a young center, or viewed as a young center. This is a guy that might hit the open market and have a team throwing $10, $11 million per year at him. And for the center market, that's a lot. Like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility if he keeps up this level of play, because he's been probably a top 5 center through the first 8 weeks of the season. I don't think there's really much argument against that.
So let me know your take on this. And I know this is supposed to be a film show, but I'm looking into the future a little bit. Is there a scenario? For me, there's not a scenario going into the future where I want to get rid of Lloyd Cushenberry. I think I'm going to want to sign him back unless he's just completely overpaid. I want to keep Cortland Sutton. I think I want to keep Garrett Bowles. And I don't care what the situation is. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to keep these cornerstone pieces that are performing so well in the same system where they are performing so well. So I think is there a scenario where you want to get rid of any of those guys? I think they're all it's such a high
100% no. And I guess that's kind of where like it gets tricky, because I mean, you've got Lloyd obviously coming up this offseason. Next offseason, they're going to have to figure out Quinn. And then, I mean, Garrett Bowles is getting older. We're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with his contract. Like, I'm not, it's not the end of the world. They obviously still have these guys for now, but it's kind of one of those things they got to start thinking about. And where I'm looking at it is like, man, if they're only going to be able to pay one of, like, this is a tough question. I mean, this is what podcasts are for. If you had to keep one of Lloyd or Miners going forward, if you had to give one of them an extension this offseason, let's say, who would it be?
Why are you making me choose, man? That's so tough.
Because I think that's it. I guess you don't have to answer, because more so, like, I think that's a decision Denver might be forced to make depending upon the price that Lloyd Cushenberry's getting on the market. I hope they can get an extension done with him in season. I'm a little worried.
I would have to say Miners, just because I think the ceiling there is higher. I think Quinn Miners has a ceiling where it's like we're talking about him as a top 3 guard in football, just off of his athleticism, his size, his power, just his physical stuff. But Lloyd, I mean, if he continues to stack games together like he is now, let's say down another year, he's performing at the same pace, he's by far going to be the more consistent player. So there's an argument there to be made, because Quinn, for all the love I want to show Quinn, he's still very much inconsistent. Like, is he the most technically refined player? No. He still makes a lot of technical mistakes, and then also has the huge flash play.
Yeah. We were talking about before the season, we wanted to see Quinn kind of step into being the best offensive lineman on this team. Like, I've said that I think he's probably the most valuable contract. Well, Patrick Surtain, but like one of the most valuable contracts Denver has right now for what he is. But like, you're completely right. He hasn't been as consistent as you think he'd see. And he still has time, obviously. We talked so often about how these linemen take a while. But just an interesting kind of thought exercise I've been thinking about. Like, man, it doesn't seem like Lloyd, I don't even know if they're in contract talks. Obviously, we're not going to know that. But like, usually I feel like those extensions get figured out by the bye week. It doesn't feel like we've heard anything about that from Lloyd. So I have a feeling he's maybe betting on himself a little bit right now, because why wouldn't he? He's playing the best football of his entire career. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on coming into this offseason.
Without question. And Frankie, I want to ask you more about, we talked a little about the screen game, the run game. Talk to me about just Sean Payton in general. You released a really good video today. After this one, guys, please go check it out. It's Frankie's Gold Star Reviews. He was highlighting Sean Payton and what he did against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a fantastic video. Frankie's breakdowns on that stuff are amazing, and I can't recommend them enough. If you guys want to get a good insight and watch the film and watch it through Frankie's eyes, go watch that. Talk to me generally about Sean Payton, though. What did you love about it? Because you were tweeting your ass off in the game about Sean Payton.
I mean, this is the second game where I'm just like, man, like I like tears in the eyes watching it type of stuff. Like the throwback screen, like, guys, like, it's stuff where it's like, it's so fun for, like, people like me, the people that like watch the film and they see little stuff, and you kind of like make little mental notes. You're like, oh, that would be kind of fun. Literally watching the week 6 film for the Chiefs, telling myself, man, throwback screen would have been pretty cool on this UC rollout play, and then he did it. everybody was mad about the flea flicker dial up, and it was wide open.
It was wide open.
Routes were,
yeah.
Like the RPO glance stuff he was mixing in, like he's dealing right now. And the video talks about a lot of what he was doing with the screen game, which is for a combination of reasons. A lot of we'll talk about kind of the limitations I think we're seeing and the kind of understanding I think Sean Payton is having with Russell Wilson. But in all fairness, that isn't entirely because of Russ. A reason you're running screens is because the Chiefs are coached by Steve Spagnuolo, who are one of the best man coverage blitzing teams in the NFL, and they have Chris Jones, who you need to slow down from running at you. So let's slow him up with a little bit of screens, and let's hit him with a little bit of some sliders and make him be honest a little bit. And it was just awesome, man. It was such a fun game to watch. Like, it's so enjoyable having an offensive play caller like this, who he's truly manipulating both in the game, throughout the game. He's manipulating over the weeks. Like, he's truly just playing chess with it. It's absolutely beautiful. I've really liked a lot of Judy's usage and Mims' usage the past couple weeks, even though I know a lot of people are probably like, they only had however many catches or only did this much. It's like, yeah, but when you actually go watch what they're doing, Mims being used on the speed motions across the entire formation and then being used as a clear route, that opened up a lot of space on a couple of these screen passes. Jerry Jeudy's being put on a lot of double moves and a lot of these one-step beaters. We've seen him run the option routes in those kind of the stack delayed releases where he gets to run the slant. Him and Russ haven't been able to time up on it yet, but it's kind of one of the things where you can see the seeds planted and they're growing a little bit. It's Sean Payton, man. I could go on for days and days. There was a Frankie 3 weeks ago that was doubting Sean Payton. I want to just slap him a little bit and be like, give him time, you stupid bastard. Because goddamn, man. Goddamn, we beat the Chiefs. And every side of the ball beat the Chiefs. With dude, you've seen Iron Man. I don't know if you've seen Iron Man. You seen Iron Man, Joey?
Yeah, I've seen that.
The meme, I can't think of the actor's name, but where he's like, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. Sean Payton beat the Chiefs with a box of scraps, man. Holy shit, this is awesome. I'm so hyped about it. I had to let that out. I think
that to the Broncos locker room. They'll have a few words about
that. Yeah, that was a little mean. I don't mean it like that, but when you look yeah, that is mean. I don't mean it like that. But what I'm saying, when you talk about they don't have the star power that the Chiefs do, oh man, it's just beautiful. They're creating,
Yeah, no, they definitely are. And I think that is definitely part of it. Before we wrap up here on the offense, I want to ask you about Sean Payton and his play calling with Russell Wilson at quarterback, though, in particular. How is this a traditional Saints offense to you, or how much are they not doing because of Russell Wilson? What are they changing because Russell Wilson is the quarterback, if anything?
So yes and no. I wouldn't say this is a traditional offense, but I don't the Saints offense also changed so much throughout the years, It
definitely did.
It reminds me quite a bit of the 20 here's the thing. The more screens and a ton of screens, that's a Sean Payton staple. That's not a shock. Anyone who is coming into the season excited about Sean Payton, I don't think they really realize that that is a big element of his game. He kind of has that Peyton Manning in him where he's going to he wants to feel you out a little bit, especially early in games. He wants to see how you handle certain things, especially those smoke screens. Let's see if your corners can tackle. Let me test all your outside guys. I mean, such a big part of the screen game this week, too. Nick Bolton missed the game. So they had Drew Tranquill and Leo Chenal playing, who, not trying to beat up on those guys, but they were clearly a guy that they were clearly the guys Sean Payton was targeting to much success. So it's it's one of those things where it's so the training wheels are on Russ, though. And I will say there are a lot of differences where you're not seeing a lot of the over-the-middle stuff. You're not seeing a lot of the, I'd say, base concepts he's able to run in the quick game because he just really can't. But I think you're still seeing enough of what he is doing where it still does feel so Sean Payton-esque.
Yeah. But so the main thing here, though, is Russell Wilson doing Sean Payton justice in this offense. That's kind of what I'm getting at here.
No.
Okay. But I'm curious about that because the Broncos do, whether we want to admit it or not, quarterback is the most important position on the field, and people hate talking about it, but it's going to have a large effect on the Broncos' future, whether you like it or not. It is kind of is, and that's why it's talked about at the point. And, just beat it into the ground to mount, is because it's going to have a massive effect on the Broncos in the future. Broncos have a decision coming up on Russell Wilson, whether they want to get rid of him or not, or keep him for another season after this. And I'm just trying to figure out, is he doing good for Sean Payton, or could this offense be better with Sean Payton?
This is a good topic, because I've got two sides of this I want to talk about. From the throwing, from the quarterbacking aspect, again, there's two sides of it. No, there are still a lot of plays being left on the field, but I will say Russ is not doing a pretty good job of not turning the ball over. I know we have the fumbles and the sacks that we'll get into that as well. There's so much to this puzzle here. But I will also say one thing that I think we've seen a lot more out of Russ this season than he's ever had to deal with. And I mean, this is something that me and Robert talk about. Russ has coming to the line of scrimmage with more responsibility than I think he's ever had. There are times where he has multiple plays. He's having a lot of checks. They're taking the entire play call. He's making a lot of reads. He's moving guys around. Russ is doing a lot at the line of scrimmage. And it's those aspects where, I'm not saying a rookie can't do it, but it's one of those things where we might take for granted if we go in next year. And yes, Russ is maybe missing some throws, but the offense is clean. Operationally, we were worried in the first couple of weeks because of how long it was taking to get play calls in, whatever. It seems like they've kind of cleaned up on a lot of the operational stuff. And I think we're seeing Russ run the offense very well. That angle, he is doing very well. Now, from the offense, or from the optics of how is he doing getting through his reads, how is he doing kind of actually playing in the offense, there it's probably subpar still. But again, it's kind of one of those balance things where it's hard to look at last week's game where, again, I think there were missed throws, but I do also think they had leads on the Chiefs, and I think there was definitely an element of let's not throw this away as we have in the past. I think there was an element of let's just keep this underneath. Let's not take too many of the deep shots unless we really have to. There were a couple sacks that Russ ended up taking where, and this is a big part of it as well, where when you talk about the Sam Howell type of quarterbacks, I think you want Russ not to, that's a bad example, but the quarterbacks that do have those longer time to throw, take more sacks, kind of have more pressures. But the flip side is they make more of those big time throws. They're standing in and kind of taking more of those shots. Russ isn't doing that. Russ is only taking the sacks right now and only kind of extending negative plays right now. There are very few times I feel like where Russ is in a game extending a play and it goes well, where I feel like it used to be more of a 50-50 thing. And that is the element where I think you do kind of want to see a different quarterback in this offense. That was a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
All right, so I agree with you. I agree with you 1,000% based off of what I've seen with Russell Wilson, everything I'm seeing. The one aspect that is not including, though, is just how much the guy's getting paid. And I don't want to continue
exactly
about that. But that I don't want to get fully into that, but that is a large factor
in
what's going on here. Because if you pick him up, for another year, you are going to be paying him. It's an extra year, so instead of a 2-year commitment, it turns into a 3-year commitment.
100%.
Something to bring up.
It's one of those things.
Yeah, go ahead, Frankie.
Last little thought on it. It's one of those things where just I just want to highlight that he's in a gray area right now. Russell Wilson is not a black and white. He's playing good or bad. Russell Wilson, there is some good, and I think that there is more good than people are willing to give credit for. Then there's also some bad, but I think people are also over highlighting some of the bad, especially when we talk about an offense that, for the parts that it has as a whole, is an average offense. And that's pretty good, I think, for where they were coming from last year and what we've seen over the couple of years. And they're trending up. I think that's something we'll kind of talk about later. This is a team that's trending up,
Mm-hmm. Without question. And Frankie, earlier you brought up just, hey, we don't want it seems like the Broncos in that Chiefs game were we don't want to throw away this game. You know what I mean? And it was funny you used throw because that literally meant throw the football. We don't want to throw away this game. We're going to play it safe. We're going to run the football. We're going to run screens. That's what we're going to do when we have this lead right now. And I think in doing that as well, it was kind of a feather in the hat of the defense, being we don't need to be up 20 on this team to win this football game. We trust you guys. And that's kind of where I want to take this conversation, is to the defensive side of the ball and just how good they played this game. I thought Baron Browning is a difference maker for this defense. I was saying it for a long time now. I mean, if it wasn't Randy Gregory, Baron Browning was the most talented pass rusher on this team. Is he the best yet? I don't know. I think some guys are giving him some run for his money, but it's clear as day that if there is a 1A pass rusher in this unit, I think it's Baron Browning. If there is going to be one that turns into that guy, it's Baron Browning. So just bring me into the Baron Browning world. How good was he?
Baron Browning was he was all right. He was pretty good. He was all right, but I will say like that had a lot to do with Denver's defensive scheme. But I mean, he has a couple plays a game, man, where the dude is just so freaky. Like and that sounded weird coming out of my mouth, but like the way the dude turns a corner and the way the dude is able to bend, which I know is just like, you know, a buzzword, but like truly the way the dude is able to get lateral to the ground, keep moving full speed, plant, and then just redirect. Like the play where he made Mahomes sack himself by running into Jawan Taylor, I think it was hilarious. Because like he's just so fast running full speed and then just plants and turns and he's running back towards Mahomes. Mahomes like, oh shit, like runs straight into his tackle. Like things like that are just like you don't see every player doing that in a league where like, I mean, these are like the 0.001% of athletes in the world. So like, dude is
that's what I should have asked you, Frankie, is just how much talent does he display? Because like I said, the guy, I'm not even sure he's the best edge on this team yet. I want to give that to Jonathan Cooper just because I think he's the most well-rounded out of all of the edge rushers. But Baron Browning, out of all these guys, I'll continue to say this. I'll continue to say it until my face falls off, man, is that if there is a 1A in this pass rush room right now, if there's a guy that turns in to a guy that's going to get us double-digit sacks this season, it's going to be Baron Browning. He is that guy. He's just that talented. He is a freak, man. Like you said, he does stuff every single game where it's like this guy is an absolute freak show out there.
Well, and such a big thing I'd say too, we were talking, you've mentioned this a lot over the past couple of weeks, is how Nick Bonito is able to turn pressures into like heavy pressures or even sacks because of how fast he is. Baron Browning has that exact same effect where like quarterbacks feel him. Those plays were like, and I mean, especially with a QB like Mahomes, who like, you know, not like he's like Russ, but Mahomes is going to hold the ball. Like there are going to be plays where he has it for 4 or 5 seconds. And as a pass rusher, you can't just give up after your first move. Baron Browning does not give up after his first move. He throws a couple counters every single pass rush. And if he beats you by even a hair, because of his athleticism and his flexibility, he beats you clean and he's at your quarterback because of what he offers. Like there were a couple plays where like, again, Mahomes is doing his thing, dancing around. And, you know, Jawan Taylor, it looks like just kind of gives up or not gives up, but like, you know, thinks the play is done. You know, it's been 3.5 seconds. Then Baron Browning, quick swipe by him. And now I'm one of the fastest dudes on the field in short area, so I can get on your quarterback really quick. And even if I'm not, you know, completing a pass, this guy's getting a lick on him. That was another really exciting thing I liked about Baron Browning and Nick Bonito this game is like they were hitting Mahomes a lot, not like dirty or anything, but like, you know, they were putting him on the ground after plays, especially on those ones where he was, you know, holding the ball a little bit too long. Like, let him know a little bit, hey, like, you can't just do this every play and we're just going to let it happen. You know, we're going to throw you down at the end. We're going to hit you as you're trying to release this pass. And it worked.
Yeah. I think that, and you brought up Nick Bonito as well. And I just want to bring up, you know, I'm going to tie this into Vance Joseph. The way they were using Nick Bonito this last game was very unique.
Beautiful.
Using him as a quarterback spy. And boy, was he really good at it because of what you were saying, where he's just an athlete. Like he can chase and run. If there's one thing he can do, I said him coming out of the draft. I haven't seen him drop back as much as I thought he would coming out of Oklahoma or his ideal situation. But to me, he was kind of like, I'm looking at him like he's kind of an inside linebacker edge hybrid in a lot of ways. And you got to see him work in the open field last game as a spy. Whenever Mahomes is running out of the pocket, Nick Bonito was on his ass. He was chasing after him. So I thought that was really impressive. And I was wondering if you had any praise to give Vance Joseph for that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we were talking about coming into this year. I think a lot of people it got circled around the social medias of last week's week 1 game where Patrick Mahomes had arguably the best game of his career against Vance Joseph. He was like 32 of 35 for however many yards and like 5 touchdowns, no picks. It was like a disgustingly good game where it's just kind of like, oh my God, this is the guy we're bringing in. the whole thing was Vance just kept blitzing Mahomes, and it did not work, obviously, because he's Patrick Mahomes. And obviously, it was like, man, this is the guy we're bringing in to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year. Vance Joseph on third downs was dropping 8. As we said, he was running like almost a lot of like simulated pressures where they kind of look like they were sending like 5 or 6, and then they'd drop a couple. They'd have like Nick Benito doing the QB spy stuff over the middle where he's kind of rotating between B gaps. He was almost kind of doing like the Myles Garrett type stuff we're seeing where they just kind of they're playing over the top of one defensive tackle, kind of doing that crossover stuff to not give the offensive line a key, and then he's just kind of dropping out right away. Like, they were just doing some stuff that's like fun to see, very smart stuff. They weren't forcing it too hard. And yeah, so the stuff that Nick Benito was doing was just excellent. I mean, he was also having a couple good plays as a pass rusher. And yeah, all 3 dudes, Jonathan Cooper and Zach Allen, man. I gotta apologize to Zach Allen, man. I hope I love it. He's a dude. Like, he's just a dude right now. There's really no way around it. I think he looks like a top 20 interior defensive lineman right now. Like, he's playing like it since week 3. I'd say he's got to have like 20 pressures, 20 run stops.
Yeah.
Like, those are elite numbers.
He's been a lot better.
And when you talk about sorry, not to interrupt again, but when you talk about the surrounding talent, like, obviously, we're hyping up this edge room, but it's not like he has a lot of dudes that he gets to rotate with on this interior that are helping him out.
No, there really isn't. I mean, DJ Jones is a good player in his own right, but
it's a lot of run defenders, a lot of run players, but especially in the pass game, there's not a lot of other dudes
that like none.
The interior's keying in on. He's getting a lot of doubles.
The one criticism I do have with Zach Allen is just like, if I'm going to get a really good pass rusher from the interior with the position Zach Allen does play, he has to be that guy. And I feel like there are upgrades that I'd rather have if I'm spending money at the position. That's my only small criticism of him. But is he a good player? He's a really good football player. I mean, we saw it this last week. I think he's really good. And we saw it, like you said, since about week 3. Zach Allen has
25.
Been a really good football player. One of the best defenders on this team. I think it would be interesting to rank who's been the best on defense recently. I think Patrick Surtain's obviously one. Justin Simmons is right there. And then I'm looking at McMillan.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Zach Allen, probably right there after him.
Yeah.
So I think on an improved defense, a lot of that does have to do with, hey, we have interior defensive lineman playing really good. Because early in the season, I couldn't praise anybody on that interior defensive line. I thought all of them were bad. I didn't think any of them were good. Is the interior defensive line good now? No. It's still I think our interior defensive line is probably our biggest weak point on our defense as of late. It's just not very great. But shout out to Zach Allen. I'm happy he has really improved his play and making it the signing at least worthwhile. So that's really good. But I do want to shout out Jaquan McMillian. Like you said, Frankie, what have you seen from him? How much of a difference maker has he been since the defense has improved recently?
I mean, when Bassey was all right in coverage, but Bassey really struggled as a tackler this year. He was a liability a little bit in the run game. Jaquan McMillian has been the opposite of that. He has been excellent in the run game. He takes on blocks with a lot of willingness and authority. He makes a lot of open field tackles that I think are kind of, I don't want to say surprising for his size. And then, I mean, you've got the ball skills in the air. You had the interception this week. That was a really impressive play against Mahomes. The diving pick on a Travis Kelce play where it's like, that is such a staple for the Chiefs offense is to just run that little Kelce, run the little dagger against the hook zone coverage. And it's like, no, McMillan read it really well and just made a jump on the ball. Awesome to see. So he's been excellent. I mean, we've really seen all the swaps they've kind of made with him, Fabian Moreau, Mike Purcell getting more snaps in the 3 defensive lineman sets. Who else is there? I mean, the return of Baron Browning, PJ Locke playing over Kareem Jackson, which,
PJ Locke looks good too, by the way.
PJ Locke looks good. I mean, he's got range, which again, when we're talking about this team was just getting gashed with big plays. I mean, it kind of makes sense to kind of have the rangier guy help your team a bit more. So yeah, I'd say everybody.
Last piece here before we sign out, Frankie. How real is this defense? Do you think this is their real unit? Do you think they are just a good defense? Because I think the last 2 weeks they've looked good. Are the Broncos a good defense?
I'll say this, and I think this kind of encapsulates the whole team. I don't know if they're a good defense, but one thing we're seeing kind of this team as a whole, I think, is they're doing a lot less Like, I think we all kind of probably watched that Chiefs game with that same sinking gut feeling of here we go again, where it felt like, oh God, Denver's going to have some disgusting pick. The defense is going to have a lapse in coverage. There's going to be some Mahomes play where he runs around and a defensive lineman can't bring him down, and then it's a touchdown and they lose the lead. That didn't happen, you know? And I think we're seeing that a lot more the last couple of weeks. I was talking last week about the glory plays that Fabian Moreau makes, you know, not the big highlight plays, but the plays that are very like the small big plays, the tone setters, the 4-yard runs, the open field tackles, the pass breakers up on a fade in the end zone. This team's making a lot of those plays lately. And I think that's probably my most encouraging sign I've seen out of Sean Payton is like, do you think about like the punt team securing a punt on, you know, the final play of the game where I don't know how many people watched, like on that play, the reason it went like that is because the Chiefs unit, they had subs come on the field late because they were so disorganized. They had a different returner in because they had been swapping between 2 returners that game. Meanwhile, the Broncos are one of the most organized special teams units in the league this season. Like, they're just one of those teams that's not beating themselves right now. And I think that's kind of what I want to say about the defense. I don't think this defense is necessarily going to beat itself right now. I think, and that's going to be something we're going to see teams kind of have to get used to. Because I think the Chiefs, as we've talked about their game plan the past couple of weeks, has kind of been, we'll beat Denver. They'll somehow lose it. You know, we don't really have to use that much of our, like, you know, teams I feel like have played the Broncos that they're not going to beat us. They're going to beat themselves. We just have to let them. And I don't think that's the case anymore. And that, man, does that feel good to say, you know, and that could completely change in 2 weeks, you know, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting is like, they're making their free throws in the fourth quarter. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
they're making those end of game clutch plays or not even clutch, just like you need them type of plays. And I think the defense can continue to be that level of defense. Not a good unit, but a fine unit.
I think they'll be okay. I think they'll still be bad in the grand scheme of NFL defenses, but they aren't going to be historically bad like they were at the beginning of the season, or probably not even 32nd. I think they'll finish off the league still bad. I don't think they'll be very good, but I think they'll be okay. They'll be a team that isn't just completely losing them games. Like, it doesn't matter if your offense is performing really well, you're losing because your defense isn't good. Mm-hmm. The one thing criticism I do have of Vance Joseph is, where were some of these guys at the beginning of the season? Why wasn't McMillian starting at the beginning of the season? Why was Hussein Bassi, who's not even on the team anymore, playing? Or PJ Locke, I guess he was hurt, but like we have some of these other guys where it's like, hey, other guys have come in the game and been better. That's just been one. Or Moreau over, you know, he was on the team since this offseason. Damari Mathis doesn't look very good. But anyways, guys, I think that will do it all. That's all for today's show. I just want, before we sign out, last thing. If you're watching right now, whether it be live or through the rerun, go watch Frankie's latest video, his Gold Star reviews. It's fantastic. He literally, take my word for it, he does a really great job on it, and I want to make sure he gets its shine because it's fantastic content. He's highlighting an offensive and defensive highlights through the game, not just the highlights, but what worked during the game. Special teams this week as well. So yeah, and that's much improved. So everyone, please go watch that. Take my word for it. But until next time, guys, go Broncos.